Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this IOSH webinar. Hopefully now everyone can see my slides. If you're joining us today, it's because you signed up for the Beyond Student Membership Advancing to Your Next IOSH Membership Grade webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. So today we're going to be telling you about what comes next after you complete your qualification. Throughout, we're going to be asking for some engagement in the chat, so make sure that you've got access to the chat box. If you do have any questions, though, please use the Q&A box as we will be fielding those at the end of the session. For those of you who are watching this on demand later in the future, thank you very much for watching this back. And if you have any questions, then there is an email that's going to be shared at the end of this presentation. So let's move on to our speakers, one of which is me. So my name's Charlotte and I work at IOSH headquarters as the Education Engagement Coordinator. And we also have got Richard with us. So I'll hand over to Richard to introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be here with you today. My name's Richard Bate. I'm a Chartered Fellow, a very recent Chartered Fellow, I should add. I'm one of IOSH's Vice Presidents, and I'm the Director of my own small family consultancy. I've been in occupational health and safety since 1997. So hopefully you're going to be asking me some good, challenging questions today.
Thanks, Richard. I'll do my best. So that's enough about us, and let's have a look at who's with us today. So if you are here, it's likely that you are either looking to upgrade your IOSH membership, so you're a current student member and you're coming to the end of your studies, maybe soon, maybe in the next few months, and you want to know what happens next. Or perhaps you're not really sure what comes next. You want a little bit of guidance. And importantly, some of you might be here who were previous student members that may have lapsed. So you may have left the membership. However, you are able to reinstate your membership, which we will talk about later on. So hopefully by the end of this session, all of you in those different categories are going to feel confident about what to do next. So very briefly, here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at why people in your position stay with IOSH when they finish their studies. We're going to have a look at the member benefits that are relevant to you, as well as the different membership grades that are open to you. We're going to look at the important chartered membership and talk about the new process to get there. And we'll also cover a bit of a demystifying and kind of explaining CPD and IOSH Blueprint. Finally, I will talk you through the practical process, the way to get to your next member grade, and we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So to begin, I want to talk a bit about who student members are, because our IOSH student membership category is a really diverse and wide-reaching category across over 130 countries. Our youngest student member is 16 and our eldest is 67. And it covers people who are taking, getting a clap from Richard, covering people who are taking vocational and professional qualifications, people who are completing maybe a degree apprenticeship or the level 3 apprenticeship that's based in England, or at one of our global accredited universities. So we want to know who's on the call today. So we're going to launch a poll now to have a look at who's with us today. And also the chat is open, so you can share in the chat who you are, where you're joining from, and perhaps what qualification you either have or have recently studied. While they're doing that, Richard, and while the poll's being launched, I'd love to know a bit maybe about what your first health and safety qualification was, and maybe your most recent one as well.
Yeah, so my first one was in 1997 in Glyndŵr University in Wrexham. It's now called the University of Wrexham. I stayed on and completed a master's immediately afterwards. But I've studied all the way through my safety career. My most recent qualification was a postgraduate diploma from MIT in Boston in sustainability. So for me, it's been really important that I keep current, I keep up to date, and I enjoy study, when I've got the time, because it's great for networking, and I get to meet people like, the people that are on the call today.
Fantastic. Well, I can also see that there are people joining from lots of different qualifications as well. We've got people who have completed and are taking NEBOSH qualifications. We've got engineering graduates. So we've got a real mix on the call. And here is the outcome of the poll. So we've got a real mix between, apprentices, vocational learners, and university degrees. So it really just demonstrates the different routes into the profession that people take. And it's also really interesting for us to see who's on the call. So thank you very much, everyone, for sharing. So now that we know who's with us, we can look at some of the reasons that students tend to upgrade their membership. And this is quite broad across most membership bodies. There are kind of key motivators for why people upgrade their membership and stay with their professional body. And also there are some specific ones to IOSH as well. Oh, seeing more in the chat, Campbell and Ian, thank you. And Jacob. Fantastic. It's really good to see the breadth of people on the call today. So, some of the reasons as to why students upgrade their membership. We have students that are really focused on things like professional development. So they're keen to develop in particular skill areas. They want to access specialist knowledge and CPD resources. And CPD is something we will go through today with you. And importantly, they want to perhaps work on some of those development areas with a mentor. We've also got perhaps more sociable or kind of those advocating members who are looking to get involved with their local branch or with a specialist group. Perhaps they want to get involved with the future leaders community to steer the direction of IOSH and how it serves that community. And then finally, we also have people that are interested in ultimately being involved with, say, the presidential team or council. And then we do have our career sort of advancement focused members as well. So they're really interested in getting access to those postnominals. They want to use things like the IOSH Career Hub to develop, say, their workplace skills, and they very much see chartered membership as the ultimate goal for them. Richard, if I had to ask you, what kind of a member are you? What is your motivation as a member for sticking with IOSH?
So I am through and through a branch group network member. My career has been defined by meeting a really amazing group of OSH professionals in North Wales. And the truth is, Charlotte, I was walking past my local pub in the small village I live in North Wales, and the then president of IOSH, who I did know, literally knocked on the window and said, "Stop walking by, come and get involved." So, it's that journey that has taken me ultimately to being on the presidential team. But we can also maybe talk about the value of volunteering a bit later on as well, because without volunteering, I most certainly wouldn't be on the presidential team.
That's really fantastic. And I love how those small moments can completely change the kind of direction of someone's life. And I think there's a lot of stories within the membership like that. And I'm sure that people on the call today will probably have had or will have those moments as well. So now that you kind of can see the motivations as to why people stick with their professional body when they finish their qualification and student membership, I'm going to just talk you through the member benefits that you will have had access to and what might change now looking forward. So for those of you that have been an IOSH student member, it's likely that you will have access to things like the student member bursary that we run every year where you can apply for funds to help support you in your studies. You probably are also reading Student Connect, which is our monthly newsletter that we send just to IOSH student members. We also have the IOSH magazine, and I know that this is a very popular member benefit with our students, and many of them like to read in hard copy. Some of you will be accessing the IOSH Career Hub, and I know from looking at our Career Hub usage data that the students are a big fan of the e-learning section. So you can see a sort of example of that here on the screen. Some of you will have been involved with the Future Leaders community and maybe have attended webinars they've been a part of or read some of their opinion pieces. Realistically, though, there are a huge number of benefits available. And if there are any that you feel have been really beneficial to you so far, it would be really good if you could share in the chat if you have a particular member benefit that you have valued. We won't go through every single one on the screen today, but what we are going to do is look at the benefits that you may focus on more now that you moved into your next stage of your membership. Richard, are there any benefits that you recommend to people at this stage as they're finishing their qualification? And you've got that diagram there to help choose from.
I mean, there's a few things, but I'll start with something that I'm really, really passionate about. Blueprint. There's been a little bit of difficulty with getting Blueprint launched across all of the membership, but it's a fantastic tool. I know we're going to talk about it later, so I'm not gonna stay with this for very much longer. I would say the thing that I've benefited most from is by being a mentor. I've been blessed to have built friendships up with 37 people who I've mentored through to chartership over the past 20 years. But really importantly, I'm being mentored by somebody who is literally half of my age. So that relationship between mentee and mentor has been unbelievably valuable to me over the years.
I'm really glad you talked about reverse mentoring there because I think it's a fantastic scheme as part of the broader IOSH mentoring scheme. And it really gives that opportunity for someone who's new into the profession or perhaps career changing in to kind of give that new perspective, fresh perspective to someone and help them with an area that they might want to be challenged on or might want to know more about. So um, I can see some comments coming in. We've already got some people volunteering as part of branch committees, which is fantastic to see. I think that's a really valuable way with connecting with local communities. So thank you for sharing. Um, what I will do now is I'll talk you through some of the benefits that you're likely to focus more on as you enter the next stage of your membership. So today we're going to be talking about postnominals, and these are the kind of letters that appear after your name when you see people, for example, like Richard with CF IOSH at the end. We're going to talk about what that means. You will be focusing on CPD or continuing professional development because for the majority of you, it will become a mandatory part of your membership. We'll talk you through the blueprint platform today that Richard's mentioned already and show you how it guides you through that continuing professional development journey. We'll talk about the road to chartered status because it's a very hot topic with student members wanting to know how they get to that point. So we can give you some practical advice and guidance on what that process looks like. We're also going to talk about volunteering opportunities and why it's a really important to keep that in mind as a goal for your sort of as part of your membership. And I will also tell you towards the end about the IOSH Benevolent Fund because it is a fantastic resource. So we're now going to have a look at your next member grade options. So when you joined as a student member, you essentially got early access to the membership. It's a discounted fee and it gives you access to the member benefits and some student exclusives. It's both for people who are new to the profession completely or people who are career changing in from a different industry, for example, a different profession. So when we say student, it is a very broad category. When you finish your studies, there are 3 options for you to go to. The first one is affiliate membership, and this is for people with an IOSH accredited qualification at any level. However, it might be that you have no experience or a little experience in health and safety, and so your membership will help you start to develop in those areas and hopefully unlock opportunities for you to gain that experience. For technical membership, there is different criteria for that. So if you've been doing an accredited qualification and you have 1 year of experience, you go into this category. Now, you may be wondering what we mean by RQF level 3 to 5. It's a very technical term. Essentially, what this means is we benchmark qualifications to the regulated qualifications framework in the UK. So level 3 to 5, broadly speaking, is kind of those certificate or higher certificate level qualifications, maybe an apprenticeship. So it's more of a entry level or starting to specialize kinds of qualification. However, when you go in at certified membership, you will have a higher level of qualification. So this might be something like a degree apprenticeship, an undergraduate or postgraduate degree, or say a diploma, and you require 2 years experience in health and safety. So if, for example, you have your level 6 qualification or you have your degree or diploma, but you don't have 2 years experience, but you do have one, you would go into technical. So hopefully that starts to give you an idea of the grade that you will go into when you finish your qualification. And you will notice that there is an asterisk next to Tech and Cert IOSH. And that is because for you, CPD becomes mandatory. So before we talk about CPD, we're going to talk about postnominals. Um, when you become a technical member or above, you unlock these letters that come after your, you can put them after your name, you can put them in your email, signature, you can put them on your CV. And they essentially tell the public or tell people at work that you have met the requirements to be that level of membership with your professional body. So they quickly tell the reader, this is this person's experience and their qualification. It demonstrates that you're committing yourself to completing CPD activities and that you've aligned yourself with the code of conduct of a professional body. So postnominals are something that are widely misunderstood, and we do talk about them a lot within professional bodies. But Richard, what do postnominals mean to you? I mean, you've obviously had a lot of different postnominals as you've gone through the membership categories, but what do they mean to you, and are you proud to share them?
Oh yeah, I'm incredibly proud of my chartered membership, perhaps more than my fellowship. For me, I knew that the test was to become a chartered member, and it's well recognized. So, some of the people that are with us today on this session, it could be possible that in a few years' time they might apply to a company that I'm working at, and it is really important. If somebody applies to work with me, I go straight on LinkedIn. I look at first of all, I see, are you a member of IOSH? And then it's important that I know where you are in that career. So it's really important from a recruitment perspective. But for me, it means that I've been tested, and I've reached that level of achievement, so that I know that colleagues and other people in other industries who are chartered members in other industries, they can clearly see that I've worked, and I've reached that level of achievement. Um, I think it's incredibly important.
That's really good to hear. And actually from within the professional body itself, from within IOSH, we're really grateful when people go out into the world with their postnominals, because it essentially increases the profile and reach of IOSH and helps us with our charitable goals. Obviously, we have a mission and vision, for a safe and healthy world of work. And if we are helping, if we have members who are out in the field, actually helping and demonstrating their postnominals, it's getting the word out about what our goals are. So when you see someone with CMIOSH or Tech IOSH, whatever it is, it can start that conversation and it can help build that understanding across the world of what IOSH represents. So now we understand a bit about postnominals. We are going to launch into CPD because it becomes mandatory, as we said, at technical membership upwards. So CPD is something I get asked about quite a lot at these presentations, because some people haven't really engaged with it up until this point, or they don't really know what it means. So we are going to launch another poll because I do want to see what the understanding is of CPD is on the call. When I do these presentations, quite often people used to confuse it with IPD, which was our old chartered process. So I'll be interested to see what the breakdown is on our poll at the moment. We'll just let it run for a few more seconds. I have had people come up with their own acronyms for it before as well. Um, okay, so we've got some confident people on the call who know about CPD. That's fantastic. We have people who have heard about it, but they don't really understand what it is. And then we've got a couple of people who haven't heard of it before, and that's fine. You will be forgiven for not having heard of it before, and hopefully you'll feel more confident after this. So, CPD, or continual professional development, is essentially a cycle. It's a process of continuous improvement. So some of you may be familiar with this model. Over time, you reflect on your skills and you identify gaps. You then undertake some targeted activities to improve those gaps. You keep a record of those activities because it's important that you're able to go back and reflect on what you've done and look at how you're applying that new knowledge in the workplace, in your practice, and sometimes in your personal life as well. And then, of course, it's an annual cycle. For some people, it's a quicker cycle or a longer cycle. So the point being that it is not something that ever stops throughout your career. Um, Now, you might be wondering, well, what do I assess myself against? How do I know where to start from? Well, at IOSH, we have a competency framework that you can see on the screen. This is one of the ways that we oversee the standards and the practice of the profession. There are 12 different skill areas with about 69 different competencies underneath, and that it's divided up into core, technical, and behavioural. So we ask that members use this to help them understand where they need to be competent and confident, and it helps them establish how to get better. We will talk more about this today, but if you want an in-depth look at CPD, there are webinars that are available on our YouTube channel, and I do encourage you watch them if you're ready to jump into CPD. So I'm going to ask people to put in the chat what they think would happen if no one did any CPD. If people decided I'm not going to do CPD, what do you think would happen? And while they are putting that in the chat, I kind of want to hear from Richard about what your approach is to CPD, what you think about it. Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
So I've done CPD throughout my career. Prior to moving full time into OSH, I was a paramedic. I was very lucky. I was a flight paramedic in North Wales with the NHS, and we were required to do 120 hours of continuous learning. So when I transitioned over into OSH and joined IOSH, you know the requirement I don't think is particularly onerous. But I would say with CPD, don't treat it as something that's difficult or something that's painful. Look at it as an opportunity. And if you use the blueprint tool, if you use it well, there is just so much information in there. I really enjoy using blueprint. I think the other thing for me is that I consider myself to be, I'm not particularly good at anything. I'm a bit of a, I'm a jack of all trades. And using the learning materials within Blueprint gives me that extra access, or gives me that instant information that I sometimes need. So I'm a big fan of CPD. Keeps you fresh, keeps you on your toes. I think it's super important, but it's also super important that you recognize that IOSH, we're giving you those tools to be at the head of your game, to be absolutely the best version of yourself that you can be.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think that, 30 hours of CPD is very doable when you think about how long a year is. And I've been parts of professional bodies where there's no support for CPD, or, a framework, and it makes it very difficult to know what is asked of you and what the expectations are and how you can develop. So I do think it's really helpful structured way of approaching CPD. There's some really good comments coming into the chat about what would happen if people weren't doing CPD, and it's true. Skills and knowledge will become out of date. People could become complacent. Legislation changes could be missed, and people can't develop to their full potential. And I think for me, with all the advances we've seen recently, and if any of you missed it, Richard was in an excellent webinar earlier this week on AI and how it's affecting the world of health and safety. if you're not keeping up with these trends, if you're not advancing your learning and you're remaining static, then in the world of health and safety, that can have a very real impact on the workplace, on, the people that you are working to protect. So I do think that CPD is essential, an essential part of professional development. And we're going to talk now about how it works at IOSH. So hopefully you'll all be encouraged to have a go at doing it. Um, all members get access to Blueprint, and Blueprint is our bespoke CPD tool where you can go in and you can complete self-assessments, you can identify development areas, and then you can get linked to e-learning content. And this is all mapped to that competency framework that we talked about earlier. So you can see on the screen there, we've just got a screenshot of the dashboard. CPD resources there on the right. There's over, 1,300 resources available, and more is being added all the time. So when you go onto Blueprint and you complete your self-assessment, here is what that will look like. And it will give you those competency areas to assess yourself against. So it will ask you a series of questions in each area. From that, it will help you build a development plan where you can identify key areas that you need to improve. And then it will suggest different training based on those gaps. Now, I know from having a look at the data recently that we've got people that are really working hard to understand sustainability. That's a very hot topic for people at the moment within the technical section. And Richard, I'm going to put you on the spot because CPD is for life and say, are there any areas that you are working to develop at the moment or areas that you're looking to improve?
Yeah, so I've got a good working knowledge of fire safety in the event space, which is where I've worked for, almost 30 years. Um, But what I've recognized that there's definitely a weakness in my knowledge around fire safety in the built environment, and there's a huge amount of information in Blueprint, and it's actually easy to find as well. That you can all see I'm a much older guy. I'm an older member. If I can work my way around, this platform, yeah, I'm absolutely certain that you can. But really importantly, if you don't mind me just jumping in at this point, Charlotte, this what you're looking at right now. If you rush through this first phase of setting up Blueprint, you may find that your professional development plan doesn't actually really fit you. You'll be tempted, particularly when it comes to those core skills, when it asks you you're effectively being asked to rate your competency in this section. And people are tempted to put that they are, working at director level or working at senior management level. But, a really good tip from me is just be honest, because this is not a human-driven platform. This is an algorithm. So however you answer the question, that's what the algorithm will use to extrapolate the data that it needs to develop your professional development plan. So be honest, take your time, don't rush, and you don't have to do all of this in one go.
That's a really good point. And I wonder, as you've been an IOSH mentor to so many people, have you actually worked with people on the self-assessment before? Because I know that some people get support from a mentor to help more objectively score themselves.
So one of the areas that I find, actually, let's be really clear. When I'm working with younger members, with students, or people in the first few years of their career, I have to say it's easy. You're all like sponges. You're able to adapt really, really quickly. It does tend to be the older professionals who maybe chartered professionals who all think that they're absolutely brilliant at everything. And trust me, we're not. So this honesty piece of, is absolutely key. I also really, really cannot stress how important it is not to try and do all of this in one go. I have worked with people who are behind on their CPD, and I know that if you sit down and just work really hard, you can get through this section of Blueprint in about 4 hours. But at the end of that 4 hours, your brain is fried. You haven't answered the questions the way that we're hoping that you'll answer the questions. And really, you probably haven't, you're not going to get the best out of Blueprint. So don't rush, take your time. The other thing is reach out to the people that, if you're not sure, there are so many good people out there within IOSH that will help you. And Charlotte, I'm going to drop this in because you knew I'd have done it. I'll do it at some point. Anybody who's on the call today that, wants to have a chat to me, wants to, want some advice and help about this, about their careers, just find me on LinkedIn. I'm super easy to find.
Yeah, this is a prime example of what I love about IOSH volunteers is just the willingness to support and help and be part of that community. And Blueprint is one of those things where, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I'm a very structured person and I do recommend blocking out time in your diary, maybe to work through different competency areas. I know we live in a sort of instant gratification sort of society now where everything has to be quite quick and always at our fingertips and very, very fast. But there's a lot to be said for taking that step back, being methodical, being reflective, and making sure you get the best out of it as well. And when you do go through that process, you will get linked to, as I said, those different resources. And there are different kinds of resources on there. Some of the more sort of soft skills, the ones more to do with your the way that you lead, or maybe, as you can see on the screen, impact and influence. They will link you through to the IOSH Career Hub or some external resources we have where you can develop those areas. But if it's more sort of core and technical content, there are plenty of guides on there around those different subject areas, and they go from the very beginning, very sort of level of understanding where you just need to get to the basics, all the way up to actually implementing things and innovating them as well. So the learning resources are incredible on there, and there is also an assessment on there that you need to complete. And it is IOSH ethical assessment, ethical practice in OSH assessment. So there's some e-learning about ethics and then an assessment. And this is more recently added. And I think it was a gap that was very much needed. Obviously, we have the IOSH Code of Conduct that's available on our website, but working in occupational safety and health, there are very high standards for ethical considerations given the nature of the job. So that ethical assessment and e-learning will help you understand more about ethics. Richard, do you have any comments on the ethics module before we move on?
Yeah, it's really critical to me because I'm a consultant, so I'm working across multiple business, and yeah, it's a short session. It's probably no more than, what is it, Charlotte, 15 to 20 minutes, but it has real value, and it does also relate into IOSH core principles. So yeah, I think it's well put together. I think it's informative, and it's got great value. And again, it'll perhaps get you to think about things slightly differently, because I think I have in the past mix up, my personal moral compass and ethics. So this is really clear. What we're talking about is ethics and not morals. I mean, I know there's a crossover, but it's a good 15 to 20 minute session, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And if you don't, let us know.
Yeah, really good point. And I like that distinction there between ethics and morals. And I think given the way that the world's changing around us, especially in technology and kind of individual rights, I think being aware of that ethical framework for the profession is really essential as well. Um, so then, now hopefully you understand more about postnominals, what they mean, and how CPD fits in. We're now going to move on and talk about chartered or CMIOSH. So on the screen, you can see a picture of our lovely Royal Charter and bylaws that are available on our website. So some of you may have heard the phrase before. Quite typically on these webinars, people say, oh yes, chartered accountant, chartered surveyor. What does chartered mean? And they've really cornered the market there. I really want to know how they've managed that in accountancy and surveying. But chartered membership all links back to the Royal Charter that we were issued in 2002. And this is essentially, this allows us to uh, bestow the prestigious title on those who have met the standards. And chartered membership means different things to different people. For some people, it's more about competence and they're wanting to demonstrate to the world that they've reached the highest professional standard and they've successfully gone through that rigorous process to get to that point. For some people, it's more about commitment. It's showing how committed they are to the profession, showing that they're committing themselves to doing CPD every year. And also it's that recognition that there's, international scope for it. CMIOSH is something that is understood across the world. And that very much links into the final point of credibility. As alluded to earlier by Richard, chartered membership is valued by employers and recruiters. It's a kind of different language that's understood in the world of work, and it's something that's trusted by the public. I have to admit that looking for a chartered professional is something I do in my personal life when I'm looking for someone to help me with something. So it does mean different things for different people, but it is a career goal for many, and it is cause for celebration. So you will probably, if you follow us on social media, see us celebrating our chartered members quite a lot. Now, obviously, Richard went for chartered and has since become a fellow. And I really wanted to know from you, although you would have gone through on the old IPD process, and we'll be talking about the new process today. What motivated you to apply for chartered, and how did you find it?
Right. So it's a long story, which I've told you before, so I'll keep it short. Um, I've spent my whole working career in the events industry. Early on in my career, I did a lot of rock tours. I did a lot of touring with bands, and the world I lived in was intense. It was incredibly busy, and really rarely got any time. So it was difficult to actually commit to the process, the old IPD process. But for me, it was really clear. What I'd found in my career is that professionals, construction professionals, manufacturing professionals, they'd always challenge people in the event space and say, "Yeah, but you guys, you're not really good at anything. You just do a little bit of construction, you do a little bit of crowd management, a little bit of security." And for me, it was important. So it's probably not long, 15 years ago. I found the time. But for me, the clear thing was around that competence piece. It was evidencing to other OSH professionals that I was competent, I was capable. And something that really important has happened over the years. I don't apologize for coming from the space in which I work. It's given me an incredible life. But I did find, and this is really important, Charlotte, and I don't think I've told you this before, Charlotte, when I went through the process, I actually found I enjoyed it. I completed the skills portfolio. Um, I didn't enjoy the peer review interview, and I fed back to IOSH that I didn't enjoy the peer review interview because it didn't relate to me. It didn't talk about, they didn't ask me questions about me, what I did in my workspace. And interestingly, IOSH, instead of just saying, "That's very good, thank you very much for your feedback," that's not what happened. Professional developments and standards came back to me and said, "Okay, do something about it." So I did. I put together a PowerPoint presentation. I shared my concerns. And now what happens, I'm not going to jump too far ahead because I'll steal some of Charlotte's thunder. Now the questions that you get when you get to that point of having a face-to-face interview, the questions will relate to you, not generally to the profession. So there's a little bit of backstory about me there, but for me, it was about evidencing my competence.
I love that story about you, and I did not know that. Yeah, I think that's a really good demonstration of members inputting into the way that we do things at IOSH. Obviously, as a membership body, one of the things we have to do is listen to the members. And so, yeah, I'll take that away and reflect on it. I think I like that a lot.
Look at the deck.
Uh,
I can share the deck with
yeah,
you.
I would quite like to see the deck actually. And actually, having spoken to a recruiter recently, I know that when people are recruiting for say quite high risk environments, being able to you know, I have been told people would go for a chartered person, or they are looking for a chartered person because of the nature of the risk involved. So there are a lot of kind of different benefits and ways of looking at chartered membership, and different motivations as to why people go for it. So if people on the call are interested, I think it's best to understand what your motivation is as you go through that process, which we'll look at now. So um, we have recently launched a new process to get to chartered membership. It's 4 stages, and it takes about 18 months to 2 years to complete. The first 3 stages are hosted in Blueprint, and then there is an interview. So the first stage is the knowledge assessment, and this is a multiple choice question that helps to multiple choice questions to help establish your knowledge against our competency framework. And this helps to produce an action plan so that you can address any competency gaps that require further development throughout the process. The second stage is a portfolio of evidence, and this involves compiling evidence to demonstrate how you've addressed any of those gaps. Stage 3 is the professional discussion paper, and this is between 3,000 and 5,000 words. And here we ask you to support the portfolio with a reflective statement on your progression, your professional insights, and a vision of your future contributions to health and safety. Now, this part is one that people do get quite intimidated by, but it's really worth mentioning. There is a lot of support for people going through this in the form of IOSH mentors. IOSH are always running webinars, and we have a team dedicated to support this process. So it might seem quite intimidating, but rest assured there are things to support you in place. And then finally, we have the professional discussion interview. So this is an online interview structured around those 3 previous steps. And as Richard mentioned, it is focused in on you, your journey, and those previous steps. And I think the important point to know is that this is available from certified onwards. So that is the kind of, if you can imagine the member journey, if you're finishing your qualification, technical certified, and then you can move into chartered once you go through the PDA process. There is a full video and web page dedicated to this new process that you can watch on our website. However, if you are someone that prefers to attend sessions, keep an eye on our events pages, as quite often the local branches also run sessions to support their members in the community to help understand the process or look at a particular part. So before we move on to talk about volunteering, Richard, is there any other reflections you have on chartered or the new PDA process?
I can't remember where we are in our presentation, Charlotte. There is something that maybe we can talk about a little bit, in a few minutes' time. Again, I'm going to say take your time. It's alongside your academic qualifications. It's really important that you gain some experience. Now, I actually did this completely the other way around. I've got a lot of experience, a lot of competency, and I call myself a tactical person. I'm a person who's able to react quickly to challenging situations, and I've built that skill set up over years. So just an observation. This new system is really, really good. It's a big step forward from the old system. It's all about you. It's about your development, not about what IOSH thinks your development should be. It's about you evidencing that you know your journey. So again, don't rush.
Thanks, Richard. And in the spirit of rushing, I will move us on so that we have time for questions at the end. The last section we're going to look at is volunteering opportunities before I give you those practical steps of how to progress. So we're going to run our final poll, which is finding out how interested people on the call are in volunteering opportunities. So on the screen, you'll get the poll, and I'm just going to talk you through some of the different volunteering opportunities available. The first one we've talked about today is becoming a mentor. So either becoming a reverse mentor, you can also become a peer-to-peer mentor if you want to talk to people similar to you and just kind of mentor each other. And there's also kind of traditional mentoring when you can be partnered up with someone more senior, and they will support you. those of you coming to the end of your qualification and moving into your next member grade may want to mentor a student member. It's sometimes really nice to have a mentor who's just done something you've done and can support you and help with maybe lessons learned or mistakes made. Um, the next group to talk about is the Future Leaders Community Steering Group, and this group's dedicated to people who are newer into the profession, either as first choice careerists or career changers. And as you can see on the screen there, they do all sorts of things like, attending events with IOSH, delivering talks, producing webinars and opinion pieces. And I can see the results of the poll, and it's really nice to see we've got quite a large percentage of people on the call today interested in volunteering opportunities. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Um, if the Future Leaders Community Steering Group is too much of an ask, and you want to maybe do something on a slightly smaller scale, we also have the Future Leaders Champions, and they are not part of the steering group, but they do support the steering group and they are active in their sort of local communities. They may get involved with their branch and be a bit of a representing the community, championing it. We've also talked today about branch and groups. So the specialist groups are things like theatre advisory group or environmental and waste management group. I think there's about 18 of them and they cover different specialist areas, different industries within health and safety. There's also the branch committees as well. And I've seen in the chat today, we've had some people who have been involved with their branch committee, which is fantastic. And then as we kind of go up the I suppose the responsibilities list gets more intense at the top, maybe, Richard, you might say. You've got the presidential team who are the face of IOSH, the ambassadors that represent IOSH and our strategy. And we also have our council who play a really important role in representing our members to our board of trustees. So, Richard, why did you get involved with volunteering?
Um, so super quickly, venture scouts back when I was in my teens. I left high school, or I left sixth form after my A levels, and I took part in the World Canoe Championships as a volunteer with Venture Scouts, and I've volunteered ever since. So, as well as my work as a volunteer with IOSH, I support the National Outdoor Events Association as a counsellor. I'm a volunteer with Motorsport UK, and I'm a senior international official with World Motorsports governing body, the FIA. Now, I'm really clear on volunteering. My career is shaped the way it is because of the volunteering work I've done. I can give you examples, but we don't have time. But please, if you again, I've given you the opportunity, reach out to me. I've had some fantastic jobs and some great opportunities, and I am absolutely 100% clear. Unless I'd been involved in volunteering, unless I'd supported other communities, I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've had. Career progression is fun, it's tough. You need to do something that makes you stand out. And if you are known within, the OSH community through IOSH, when those roles come up that you really want, and somebody like me has a look at you on LinkedIn, I can say, yeah, interesting. So you're a branch member. Oh, and you're a member of the future leaders community. Oh, and that for me, and it won't just be me that does that. There's the potential for 51,600 and something other OSH professionals to be doing exactly the same thing. So I'm not saying that you must volunteer. What I'm saying is if you do volunteer and build that network, I really believe that you'll have more opportunities in the future.
Thanks, Richard. And I love a lot of members volunteer not only for IOSH, but I see on LinkedIn all sorts of things that our members get up to with their local communities, schools, colleges, different charities. So it really is a great way to learn more about yourself and also make those connections. So as we move into this final part of the webinar, before we go to questions, I will very quickly tell you how to progress your membership. And it's fairly straightforward. All we need you to do is go through this process. First, you send us your documents. So that will be evidence of your qualification, the qualification you've completed. And we would need a results letter or certificate, evidence of the marks that you've received, and also an updated CV. At that point, it will be reviewed by our professional assessment team. They'll have a look at your qualifications and experience to match you to one of those 3 member grades we talked about earlier. And from there, you will pay your renewal fee to get into that grade. Now, that's a really important point, is that by joining as a student member, you've already benefited from membership for just £15, but when you go to that next member grade, you will just pay the renewal fee. If you waited until the end of your qualification and didn't join as a student, then you would have to, like others, pay the joiner fee and the renewal fee. Now, that's really important for people who are on the call who maybe have let their student membership lapsed, because we do allow you to reinstate your membership within a 2-year period. So if you have, say, finished your qualification and you've been finding your feet and you're ready to progress, then if you get in contact with the same information, we'll be able to take you through the process as well. Now, being a charity, as you can imagine, we are bound by lots of different kinds of rules and regulations. So it's really important that we get the right information from you for our records. So the evidence of completion that I've mentioned, we need to make sure it has your name on it, the name of the qualification. The fact that you've completed the qualification is really important as well. So we can accept things like certificates, transcripts of marks, or if you haven't got those yet, you're waiting for graduation, but you can get an official letter from your education provider. Or if, say, you're from an awarding organisation or apprenticeship and you have something official, we can accept that. But what we cannot accept is an email, a screenshot, an expired student card, anything that's provisional, so it doesn't actually confirm that you've been awarded yet, or if a document hasn't been officially translated into English, unfortunately, we cannot accept those. Now, at this point, I really want to emphasize that there is a lot of support available. If you're looking for support with the renewal fee that you have to pay, we do have concessionary rates of membership available if you fulfill the criteria such as being on parental leave, if you fit into the low wage or unemployment criteria, if you're studying again full time and you need some support, or if you are suffering from ill health, or if you are in the retired category. So we do have a web page called Member Financial Support, so you can read more about that there, as well as information about the IOSH Benevolent Fund, which is available as long as you've had over a year of continuous membership. It is available for you to apply to for some support during hard times, in times of crisis. So what we will do now is we'll go over to questions. If you do have any questions about extensions, hopefully this will answer them for you. If you have not finished your qualification yet and you have extra time, we can, of course, extend your student membership following the instructions on the screen there. You just need to email us with evidence of your new end date. So we're now going to go over to Q&A, and I'm going to have a look at see what we have received. So someone has asked about the member grades and said, should we choose the level we go to, or will someone at IOSH help us? We will help you. We will help you by mapping you to your correct member grade. So hopefully that is reassuring. We also received some questions before the session. So someone who was working as a firefighter asked whether they could use their experience from working within the fire industry towards health and safety. And I'm going to go over to Richard to that one because I think that's a really good question.
It's a really good question. I came from the emergency services, and I was able to use my first degree in pre-hospital care to support my progression through IOSH. I would say, particularly poignantly at the moment, that anyone who's coming in from the fire service is bringing a skill set that is very, very much in demand at the moment. So
Yeah.
absolutely. So
100%. And I think if you use the IOSH competency framework, I'm sure you can start to see parallels between the kind of skills that you can transfer over from that industry into the health and safety role. So we had quite a few questions coming from people asking about work experience. So they're coming out of their qualifications, but not having work experience yet in occupational safety and health. One thing I would say is we ran a webinar series last year on working in health and safety for people in that position, and it included things like how to get work experience, how to write a CV. But Richard, do you have any further thoughts?
well, I've actually seen a question I quite like from Emad, who's asking about, he's a safety officer on a mining project and wants to know what level is best for him. Well, let IOSH support you. Complete blueprint, that will give you an indication depending on where you are as a member. Um, um, I think this is more personal. It's about where you want to be in your professional development. I'm pretty sure that the company you're working for has a required standard. Um, but yeah, interestingly, what we haven't talked about is how IOSH is understood globally. There are some parts of the world where IOSH is very, very active, and other areas where perhaps not so active. That's a really good question, Emma, and I'm going to take that back to professional development. So you, again, I'm going to offer all of you again. If you reach out to me through LinkedIn, I'll answer that question. I think that's quite interesting.
Thanks, Richard. And what we will do is we will collate the questions from the session afterwards and contact any individuals with answers. We like to make sure everyone's question gets answered. We also had some questions come in. Again, we're looking at that work experience piece. We've got people with experience from other countries who are looking to work in the UK, and if we have any advice for them. I think it's really important that if you have completed an IOSH recognized accredited qualification, that you do emphasize that on your CV as part of your profile to understand that it is a qualification that is, that is seen as meeting our requirements. I also think it's very important to be able to um, compare different systems, and we do have a lot of content on the IOSH magazine website where we often compare, authors of the pieces compare different systems. But Richard, do you have any further advice you could offer to people with that question?
Sorry, I've got distracted. I've been looking at one on sustainability and someone
I'll let
who's
you off.
um, yeah. So sorry, can you ask? I was reading the question, so I just
It was essentially any questions, any support for people who are asking about working in the UK if they've got experience of a different country's health and safety system.
yeah. So I think one of the things that's really good about the UK is that our education system is very, very, very well established, and we have incredible links throughout the world with different universities. So I think again, a lot of students who are coming into the UK, perhaps from the Commonwealth of Nations, will find that it's a lot easier, particularly around that if IOSH has a relationship with the university or the organization where they've studied. I wouldn't get too tied up in the qualification. Just come to us with whatever qualifications you have and let us help you. And if you don't quite meet our criteria, there's an amazing group of people at IOSH who will help you identify where you need to be, what the steps you need to take to become one of the if you like the higher levels, higher membership levels of IOSH. We're here to support your career. You just need to engage with us.
Really good point. A lot of people say that professional body membership is like a gym membership and you get out what you put in, which I always think is a good analogy. So as we close today's webinar, we do have some other questions that have come in, and I will email you individually to make sure that your questions get answered. If you have any further questions for us, you can see the email on the screen. And we really do look forward to hearing from you. Obviously, you can reach out to both of us on LinkedIn. You have that email to contact us. And hopefully we'll see some of you come through to your higher level of membership. And maybe one day I could get one of you onto one of these webinars as well to support me, just like Richard has. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. Wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is for you, I hope you have a good rest of the week, and we'll be in contact with you after the webinar. Thank you very much. Thanks, Richard.
Bye, everybody.